All right, guys, just want to talk about being married to a Filipina. I've been married for 12 years and still happily married. And one of the things I will say, there's a lot of people that gripe about relationships, and reality is they need to have a look at why the relationships failed. I mean, like somebody there was saying they'd been married for 30 years and they'd paid for siblings, they'd done this, they'd done that. Do you know what? You let that happen. Your wife didn't. The wife's obviously asked you, and you just went along with it. So you can't sit there and go, oh, well, it's all the wife's fault or whatever. You let that happen. Nobody else. But also, a lot of the time, there's a lot of guys that create the issues in the first place. When I know from my time in the Philippines, there's a lot of guys that have got mental disorders, alcohol issues, can be quite abusive, and ultimately sitting there going, oh, well, my she was a scammer or whatever. They do that because, guess what? Looking in the mirror is so hard. But often the women themselves don't go around talking about it the way the guys do. Now, don't get me wrong, there is some bad women out there, and I do know that there's a lot of women out there that like to try and interfere in other people's marriages. But at the same time, there's a lot of good marriages out there, and there's a ridiculous amount of happily married guys with Filipino wives. Even here in Spain, on this bit of the coast, there's a lot of Filipinas, 50s plus here, married to Scandinavians, Norwegians, and Dutch, that are obviously happily married and have been for years. It's not a case of your risks higher. The fact that you, like the guy said, he was married for 30 years or still married for 30 years, there is your proof. Because look at the fail rate on marriages in the West within the first 10 years or within the first year. It's horrendous. The reality is a lot of the women are quite happy to commit to the relationship from the Philippines. They're not half in, half out, which is what you get in the West. A lot of women are sort of like, well, I'm in love with him. They don't look past that. They are just, oh, well, I like him, and then I want a divorce because he farts in bed or whatever. It's pathetic, and that's the sort of stupidity that you're often dealing with. At the same time, a lot of women in the Philippines will go into a marriage without even having any love emotions, because they are looking at it from a commitment side and love evolving over time, if it ever did. But the point being is they're looking at it as a commitment as a pair. Now there's all sorts out there. I mean, you do get these people talk about second lives where the woman's fairly young, yet the guy's 1 foot in the grave. But the woman's looking at, by the time she hits a certain age, that guy would have passed away. She would have inherited a widow's pension or whatever, and she would have been financially now able to look after herself going forward, along with the fact that she can now do what she likes. She can find another husband. But also you'll find a lot of women are actually happily married. I know, I don't even know how many hundreds of people I know that are happily married. It's a lot of people. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been a few failed marriages over the years, but a lot of the time it's been the guys. And it doesn't just come from the fact of the guy having some funny quirks about them, or maybe they're abusive or whatever. It's also down to the fact that they also picked the wrong woman in the first place. When you can see a woman is talking to her friends all the time, when you can see a woman is running down her husband, then you've already got a woman that you shouldn't be marrying. And some guys still do it even when it's pointed out to them. I remember there's a prime example of a guy I know from Droitwich. He married this Russian woman because he was in the British Navy, and they were doing some war exercise off the coast of Russia. They went on land for one evening. He met this Russian woman. He sort of clicked with her, And then he married her and brought her to the UK. And long story short, the guy's an idiot. He sleeps on the sofa because she won't let him sleep in the bed. She does all this. She talks about how stupid her husband is in front of his friends as well. But at the same time, he sits there and puts up with it because she's attractive. She's this, she's that. And, oh, yeah, but if I cancelled her visa and stuff, she would have to go back to where she come from. And was like, really? And so what? You know, at the end of the day, she not only abused the guy, but on top of that, she knew exactly what she was doing. She was manipulating him. Yet he is too stupid to see the realities of that. You know, I don't know what he's expecting out of this relationship. I know what she's expecting, probably the house. Once she gets to a point where all her paperwork's done, and then she will get rid of him. And yet, he's in the position to just say it's not working at the moment and send her back to Russia. But he isn't. And that's the sort of thing I would say. Some guys are in those types of relationships, and then they'll go, "Oh, these people are all scammers." It's like, if you can't read that writing on the wall, you never will. So just be aware. There are a lot of happy marriages out there with Filipinas. There is a lot of happy marriages out there with people from Poland and other places. There's several people I know that are married to Polish. I can't really say the same about Russians because, quite simply, I've not met anybody that's had a good relationship with a Russian yet. Predominantly, the woman's become, I can't say even become, I assume they've always been like that. Even a guy that married a woman in her 60s, she's still the same, self-centered, and has this false projection that she's important, in the sense of always dressed to go to dinner sort of thing, and looks down on other people. But at the same time, she's not wealthy, she's retired and living off someone else's money, but at the same time, she acts as if she's a Queen of Sheba sort of thing. So it's a very, very peculiar thing, and I've seen it with a lot of Russian women. Polish women I found a bit different. I found a lot of the Polish women are down to earth, probably because of the history Poland's had with World War II, etc. That it's took a good solid beating on a regular basis. But the thing is, the Polish women I know in the UK work hard. They just get on with life. They're very committed to the relationships. They're very committed to their family. I'm not sure how the family connections are with their husbands, but they're very committed to the rest of the Polish families. Along with the fact that they're committed to their husbands. And they do make, as long as the husband's progressing, and I think this is where there's a bit of conflict, is where there's a bit of a difference, because if the guy's not committed to keep pushing forward, you know, and developing themselves, I see friction sometimes in some of the relationships, because the guy may be happy just doing his job where the woman still wants to keep progressing life. And that sometimes can create a bit of friction. But generally, they're happy. And they seem to be very good at organising themselves, from the ones I know, financially, work-wise, and everything else. They're very geared up and committed to making money. So from a financial point of view, those relationships work. And they seem quite bubbly personalities from the people I've met as well. But with the Philippines, I find the women, if you want to just have a partner that just carries on through life, you can end up with that. Because if you don't actually encourage your wife to work or whatever, she's expecting a lot of the time the traditional marriage, because that's what they've been sold in the Philippines, that the woman should be at home, etc., which is quite peculiar when you consider the amount of women that actually work in the Philippines. A lot of the time, the women are working and the guys are at home. So that's a bit odd, but this is the thing, marrying the rich foreign husband, that's the sort of expectations that are in people's heads. You've got to decipher that. You've got to inject the realities that in most Western countries, both people have to work. In both salaries should be needed to move things forward. I mean, at the end of the day, the quicker a mortgage is paid off, the less it costs. So if two people are paying a mortgage on a house, the better it is for both of you. But also on top of that, for retirement, if you're ahead on the mortgage and that's paid off, you can then invest more in your pension or whatever, other ideas, so that you can set up retirement and retire early. But if you've got the family restraints, which some people get locked into, you might as well be on your own, from a financial point of view, because you're carrying the can of two people plus everybody else that's on the back of the other person. And my best advice on that sort of stuff, although it's completely up to you, is if you've got other people draining your cash flow, knock it on the head. Not ditch the wife, but you need to confront the wife about it and say, look, they can work. And I do hear these things where they go, oh yeah, but you can only make, I don't know, $150 a month or whatever in the Philippines, where I can just do it. It's like, yeah, but it's not about the money. It's about self-worth. It's about getting out of bed. It's about routine. It's about having something driving somebody forward in life. If you're not just giving them money, takes a lot of that stuff away. And it's one of the problems that we have in Western society today. Like the UK, for example, the benefit system is so comfortable for people that it takes a lot of the self-worth away. The minimum wage has been risen to a point where a lot of jobs simply don't exist anymore. Here in Spain, you will find people walking around with a broom and stuff, sweeping the streets. There is nothing wrong with somebody that has that type of job. In fact, they've got self-worth. They get out of bed. They've got something they're doing. They're committed to doing something. In the UK, you will find you've got people around and the little sweepers that come around once in a blue moon to sweep an area. Yeah, if the wages were lower, you'd actually have a lot more people employed. I know I'm going to get attacked by some of these socialists and people are stuck on benefits or whatever. But don't get me wrong. A lot of these jobs would pay more than people that are locked on to benefit pay. On top of that, I do think the cost of living in the UK is out of control. So don't misinterpret it. What I'm saying is there's a lot of jobs out there that are simply not being done anymore because of minimum wage. But anyway, in the Philippines, a lot of these jobs still exist because a lot of the jobs are paid cash or done on a way that's contractually, you only got 3-month contract or 6-month contract or whatever, so that the companies can get away from the legalities. And that's another problem. Spain's got exactly the same issue around employment law. It's a pain in the backside to actually employ people. So the point being is, if you've got a partner that is basically just giving her wages away, I do recommend having a serious talk about that. And like I said, it's completely up to you, because it is not helping the family unless it's actually dealing with renovations and things like that in the Philippines, which is a long-term thing that helps them overall. But if it's just giving people a monthly allowance to sit on their backside, you're better off putting them on a catering course. You're better off getting them off their backsides doing something. And if they don't want to go to college or whatever, not your problem. You don't have to pay for them. You just say, well, thanks, that'll save me sending you to college, because you ain't getting the money. If you don't want it, fine. But I also understand that you don't have to put people through college. That's up to you as well. Because I know some people have had the problems where they put one person through, then somebody else is then sitting there with their hand out for their child going, oh, well, you paid for their education, why aren't you paying for ours? Guess what? It's up to you. Don't get locked into you have to pay for everybody as well. That's another load of nonsense. What you need to do is like, what I do with my money is up to me. That's it. If you're not happy with that, it's tough. But I ain't falling out over the fact that I'm not paying for your child. If you want to fall out over that, that's fine. I didn't have the child. You did. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.